hard to conceal. Can't imagine all the pain I feel. Give anything to hear half your breath. I know you're still living your life after death.
Good evening, and thank you for joining me here on Think About It Thursdays with Conversations with Taz. The last video that I played, there is an update. We're going to go into that before we get into all of the other news that happened today. Cincinnati man charged in connection to woman's body found in Kenton County. A man has been charged in connection to the discovery of a woman's remains in Kenton County. Theodore Myers, 53, is charged with abuse of a corpse and tampering with evidence. Both are felonies. Remains were found in a wooded area near Palace Avenue and Spring Street in Ellesmere on Saturday. Investigators were able to identify them as Dede Roberts, 28, from Cincinnati. She had been reported missing on August 25th. Investigators have not said if they know how Roberts died. They did serve a search warrant at a home on Spring Street in Ellesmere on Wednesday in connection with her death. Police charged Myers on Thursday. He was arrested in Hamilton County and will be extradited to Kenton County. Investigators have not said if they know how Roberts died. Police are still trying to trace Roberts' last day. Anyone with information is asked to call Detective Andrew Kenner at 859-392-1979. The memorial services for Dede Roberts will be on September 20th. There is a GoFundMe. It is linked in the bio as it says below. So as you all know, a lot has happened today. Most notably, and there is a blog linked in the description of this video. Be sure to check it out if you haven't. But when the notice came out this morning saying that a certain someone was sick and then the whole royal family was being flown in, I was like, yeah, she's already gone. They're just getting the heathens together before they announce it to us. Let's roll that beautiful footage.
It is hot as hell in this funky ass, hot ass room I'm in. Is that the Grim Reaper?
What your first reaction was when you heard the news that the Queen is under medical supervision?
I mean, I think it's pretty sad, like, when anyone kind of gets in that position, like, you wouldn't want that to happen to your own family member. But I'm not, like, the biggest fan of the Queen, or just, like, the monarchy in general, so I wasn't, like, that upset or overwhelmed by it. It was just something that happens, I guess.
You're not the biggest fan of the monarchy. I wonder why.
Mainly to do with like British, like colonial history, things like that. A lot of things that have gone on, which have been quite shady, even like recently with like Prince Andrew and everything. So,
spill the tea.
Yeah, I'm not really their biggest fan.
Fair enough. It was nice talking to you.
Now, what's more tragic, the Queen dying or her loyalists thinking the world should be mourning with them too? And with all the people celebrating, thinking Diana will get you justice when the Queen makes it to heaven, a bit of an insult thinking she's gonna make it to heaven after this list. On a serious note, do you know how many brave souls fought to gain independence from the monarch all over Asia and Africa? If it wasn't for the Queen, we wouldn't have people like Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi. I guess we have something to thank her for. But if you didn't know, these countries are still under the subjugation of the monarch, and I live in Canada. I can't speak for the majority of these countries, but as a settler in Canada, I was quite surprised when I found out majority of Canadians support and believe we should become an independent republic from the monarch. As much as I would like to become an independent republic, as for now, Charles is the king of the countries that I listed. Let me leave you with some good news. The funeral day and the coronation day will be considered a national holiday.
Prince William has officially become the heir to the British throne now that his father, King Charles III, has taken over as head of state. Prince William will receive an additional title as Duke of Rothesay of Scotland. It will be up to King Charles whether Prince William becomes the Prince of Wales. That decision will be made at a later date. Prince George, Prince William's eldest son, has become second in line to the throne.
And let's not forget the incestuous, colonizing, racist colonizer queen made sure that the cousin slash mistress, Camilla, would become the queen consort. Because technically she should have been like Philip and just like a princess or duchess for the rest of her life, but no. But it is what it is. Still got one more video regarding the UK.
Kenyans are suing the UK government over colonial abuses and land theft. They're seeking a reported $200 billion.
If you go to Kericho, they will tell you that the British never left. The status quo is not acceptable, it's not sustainable, and the resistance is moving in the right direction.
British colonizers forced Talai and Kipsigi's people off their land in Kericho County to make tea farms for white settlers between 1895 and 1963. More than 500,000 Kenyans suffered human rights violations, including killings, sexual violence and torture, as British forces stole their land. Kenya is one of the largest black tea exporters in the world, and to this day, multinational corporations like Lipton and Unilever continue to profit from the land. Those two companies did not immediately respond to an AJ Plus request for comment.
They should precisely bear in mind as they enjoy that cup of tea. That cup of tea has a history of domination, colonialism, exploitation, and basically slave labor. When people have that kind of consciousness, they can call their companies to account.
Wealthy countries continue to benefit from the exploitation of the global south for cheap labour and raw materials. In Kenya, farm workers for flour exporters say they usually earn around $3 a day, well below a living wage. And many have reported being sexually harassed by their supervisors.
If people knew the exploitation of young women in places where these flower plantations exist, they will probably not participate in the celebrations of Valentine's Day.
After fierce resistance, British colonial rule ended in Kenya in 1963. But the former empire has largely avoided confronting its bloody past. Now, the Kericho case has been brought to the European Court of Human Rights because the UK has failed to address these colonial crimes. In response to an AJ Plus request for comment, the UK government said it would be inappropriate to comment on legal proceedings.
The fact that the British continue to ignore these claims and just basically dismiss them is an act of gross inhumanity and injustice. This is an issue that will not go away, and they have to respond to it. And the Caribbeans will raise the same issue. The people from India, they are still calling for reparations as well.
It's not often that the UK provides reparations, but in 2013, the country provided a compensation settlement of around $30 million to over 5,000 elderly Kenyans who the British tortured and abused during the Mau Mau uprising for Kenyan independence.
The British should pay reparations. And they've started doing that, so they should continue.
And they wonder why non-white people have a problem with the Queen in the UK. Also making headlines, coming from AOL.com, 4 dead, 3 wounded in murder rampage that shut down Memphis. A 19-year-old man was in custody in a series of shootings, including one broadcast on social media that left 4 dead, 3 wounded in the city of Memphis on edge late Wednesday, police said. The suspected shooter was identified by police as Ezekiel Dewan Kelly. He was apprehended around 9:20 p.m., more than 2 hours after police issued an urgent warning that prompted calls for residents of the Tennessee city of around 630,000 to stay indoors. Kelly was charged with first-degree murder early Thursday. Couple things. He had charges like this previously, stemming from when he was 17. It's time to take a better look, DAs, at who you want to cut deals with, who you want to shave off time for, because you have nonviolent criminals that you will put in prison for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And every time they come up for parole, you say that they're going to be a menace to society. But you always seem to let violent criminals out. Like, is this your way of population control? Number one. Number two, social media platforms, tighten up. People can be on a live, playing music, being cordial, educating people, and these lives will get shut down immediately. This is the second time this year alone that someone has gone on a rampage and live streamed it on social media. Why? How? You have moderators that are supposed to be watching things in real time, correct? Why is this not immediately transferred over to law enforcement and the live shut down from the public? Next, we're going to touch on one of the most irritating talking points from the ultra MAGA crowd, the insurrection self-coup crowd, where they're like, oh no, the Capitol Police let them in. The Capitol Police let them in. That has been debunked. Let's take a look.
Sure. I think you're probably referring to this video, which was shared with the commentary of like, oh, look, law enforcement just waved them through the barricades. Shortly after, though, we received another video with an angle that shows that officer was clearly just gesturing to his fellow policemen. There's also this photo and video that people were saying shows officers opening the doors to let more inside, but the interior surveillance footage shows that it was actually this man who scaled the windows and came down and opened the doors. These officers were trying to block the entrance. The U.S. Capitol Police actually did suspend 6 officers that day to investigate their behavior. So far, only one of them has been charged, and he wasn't even on duty on January 6th. Meanwhile, the other 5 have received disciplinary hearings for being unbecoming. They were doing things like taking selfies with the rioters. So I'm guessing you're commenting to say that the insurrectionists did nothing wrong, like police let them inside, but we have a lot of surveillance footage and thousands of videos of live stream from social media, and there's just no evidence of that. What we do have evidence of is over 140 officers being injured, with many of them losing their lives shortly after.
So yeah, it's kind of time to put that crazed talking point to bed indefinitely. Like, so indefinitely. Now, everyone's familiar with Kim Kardashian. She's made millions and is now considered an American socialite and opened the door for her family members to also make millions through a leaked sex tape and by cosplaying the aesthetic of a Black woman. Well, now she's moving into a different arena and is taking on a different type of business. And that aesthetic has changed. To let you know, when people say it's just hair, it's just this, it's just that, when it's time for somebody to be taken seriously, it's just a metamorphosis. Yes, this is the new Kim Kardashian. That is now a whole ass white woman. Coming from theroot.com, Kim Kardashian turns her back on her only true talent, stealing the aesthetic of black women. In a recent discussion with Interview magazine, Kim Kardashian again set the internet ablaze with controversy. It wasn't just a September cover image in which the reality star shows her bare backside in a jockstrap that caused a stir. It was Kardashian lamenting about how some of her biggest critics have said for years she has no talent. Well, she doesn't. I'm like, well, we have a TV show. But just because we're not singing and dancing and acting on the show doesn't mean that the fame didn't come from that. Did we forget how you got the TV show? Okay. But then I would write that as a hashtag, not bad for a girl with no talent, because people used to be like, well, what do you do? What's your talent? And I'm like, didn't know I needed one. Kardashian continues. I mean, I can give you a million fucking talents. I can cook well. No, she can't. Use my toes for anything. What the fuck? I could tell you the weirdest fucking shit on the planet. Highly doubtful. But I think my talent is marketing and the business behind selling products and knowing what the customer wants and making it feel attainable. I gotta be being punked, but also a bit unattainable at the same time. I wouldn't say that's a talent. I think it's a bit of magic and business savvy. Maybe it is talent. I don't know. Your marketing is playing to the insecurity of people. You don't put anything up that's not severely photoshopped. It's not surprising that the mother of four wouldn't acknowledge her real talent. Profiting from the aesthetic of black women, Kardashian has become infamous for her curvaceous body. She denies it's surgically enhanced, which was underscored with her 2014 Paper magazine cover. The featured photo drew comparisons to Saartjie Baartman, who hailed from South Africa and was the hot knot Venus. Baartman was a black woman who was forced to have her exoticized body become a public spectacle for white people. Kardashian, on the other hand, has gone to the extreme lengths to achieve this, and her look includes having plump lips, a protruding posterior, and heavy amounts of contoured makeup. Now, why is she doing this? Oh, I'm going to tell you. You know I'm going to tell you. Coming from The Hill, Kim Kardashian launches her own private equity firm. How stereotypical, how racial trope to go, you know what? I'm going to move into a business where I need my mind to be taken seriously. Weren't you trying to become a lawyer in order to be the Innocence Project 2.0, Kim Kardashian? But yeah, Kim Kardashian is the latest celebrity to announce the launch of her own private equity firm, Sky, SKKY, Partners. They come so close to that triple K. Ooh. In a news release on Wednesday, Kardashian partnered up with longtime private equity veteran Jay Sammons to create an equity firm that focuses on investments within the portfolio of high-growth consumer and media businesses. Once again, wasn't she trying to skirt around going to law school to become an attorney to fight to free innocent people? When I told y'all that was just a PR stunt, because we found out last year that it was black women doing all of the work. So a black woman literally was professional enough to go into courtrooms and conduct interviews. And it was still professional enough for you to have that aesthetic when you went into the White House with Donald J. Trump, then FOTUS. But now that you want a private equity firm, this is what you got to do. Okay, Kid Rock. It's not just hair. It's not just AAVE. It's not just clothes. We are not a caricature. We are not a costume. But how would anybody learn any of this? We have secretaries of education all over the United States going wild. Not sure? Let's take a look at Oklahoma, for example. Let's go.
Hey, TikTok, here's a serious one for you. I'm doing these Ryan Walters videos, so I just thought I'd shoot him in my car like he does. So you remember the letters he sent out about the teacher in Norman? And then he had to correct the letter because he's going to get sued for libel and defamation of character. What he did is said that she gave access to pornography to kids, and she gave them a QR code to a library, literally a library, a QR code, which is a scan code for people older than me. You hold your phone up, scan it, it takes you there. These kids know where to find everything on the internet. You're not showing them something new. This is a police report because she's had to move out of her house because of threats and people calling and leaving crazy messages and all this other stuff. These are unintended consequences of an idiot pulling a political stunt without thinking about it. Not only was it written in poor English, which really, it's embarrassing. He writes as bad as I do, but I'm not Secretary of Education. This guy needs to be removed from office. He was appointed by the governor. He didn't get elected to anything, and he's trying to get elected by humiliating, embarrassing, and lying about a teacher. Is this who you want to be head of education? Literally, superintendent. There's a country in Central Europe, and I can't remember the name of it. They got pretty famous back in the 40s for doing this kind of rhetoric and scaring people and turning people against him and doing all of this stuff. But the name escapes me. But they're pretty famous in Central Europe. If you know anything about history, you might know who they are. He's starting to resemble these folks. And what we can't do is have this guy get in charge of education using the word indoctrination, because he obviously has not looked it up. Sister Rosarita from 4th grade would be spanking him right now for using that word improperly constantly. Ryan Walters, you got to stop, and you really need to pull out of this race, because now you've made it dangerous for a teacher. Literally dangerous. Shame on you.
And he's absolutely right. Learning about Hitler, the SS, Nazis, never did I think that I would live through the United States moving towards that rhetoric. I know that Hitler got his playbook from the United States. He pulled the chattel slavery, Jim Crow, post-antebellum, Reconstruction era playbook, plucked it right from the United States. And I'm old enough to remember watching the news and watching the Berlin Wall come down. I'm at that age where I've been able to sit down and talk to and listen to panels of the Tuskegee Airmen. Never got a chance to meet any of the Red Wings and Holocaust survivors. I remember there being such a big push to chronicle and document their lives and get, vocal audio accounts of what they went through, because it was just so drilled into everybody. It's important not to forget. It's important not to forget. I'm old enough to remember an interview with Eartha Kitt where she talked about being born into slavery and her picking cotton as a child. Yes, that Eartha Kitt. And people being so disgusted by the behavior of the Nazis, but also proud of their Mercedes and BMWs, proud to wear their Chanel bags and perfumes and their Chanel suits. There are people so disgusted by book burnings, but still covet their Daughters of the Confederacy children's books. See, back then, I was too young and too naive to realize it's been brewing in this country for a very long time. This country refuses to face its history, let alone its current reality. So there are people who find nothing wrong with this and do not see the comparisons whatsoever. Once again, they believe that their fascism is on the right side of history. That's why you hear terms like America first. Again, you're hearing pure blood, 3%ers, Proud Boys, 88. This is why they want to further dumb down the population and overflow the population with white babies. And as I've said before, they've forgotten, and by they I mean racist, they've forgotten how much they fetishize non-white people. They've forgotten that we're not under the thumb or rule of utilizing the Mann Act to ensure relational segregation. Every white woman or every white person that bears a uterus is not in a relationship with a white person, is not attracted to a white person, will not necessarily become impregnated with a white person. Now, there's some that realize that, hence the fact they want to lower ages of consent for marriage and sexual relations. And we've already have a crisis of child brides within this country. And they want to increase it because they want to continue that cycle of uneducated, unable to lead, broken down, born and bred to be submissive, do what I want and say, vote how I want and say, so we can continue to vote against our best interests just to keep a person who looks like us in power. They're extremely sick. But you can't be well in the head walking around as a genetic mutation proclaiming that you're superior. And before people start with that, but Taz, you said Queen Elizabeth and the British and all these people were colonizing. They were colonizing because they couldn't survive without anyone. Outside of spring and fall, what time during the times of exploration could they survive on their own? They couldn't even translate for themselves. Do you know when they started colonizing the United States, they had to teach English to the black people they were stealing from other countries, and the black people were translating for them? The reason why the United States is able to grow tobacco to this day is because of a black and indigenous woman named Indigo. They couldn't figure out how to make the crops take, let alone how to harvest them. Inoculations came from a slave that was gifted to a pastor, Cotton Mather. And don't get me started on Thomas Edison, Mr. I'm going to go work at the patent office and steal how much I can, and I'm going to take credit for the 8 black men, aka the Edison 8, that work are forced underneath me to do the work. See, they spend so much time trying to prove that they're better. They went all of these places to get spices, and then when spices were in such an abundance that they were available to everyone, the new trick was, and it still holds true to this day, oh, you don't need all that spice on everything. I just have a more expensive cut of meat. That'll make it taste better. And they started using French originating terms for cuts of meat to make it sound better than the commoners, the peasants. So they didn't want an aristocracy by familial relations. They wanted a hierarchy to feel better. Because it's never the best of the best that they send out, unknowing if they're going to return. These are the same people, excuse me, that crushed up the bones of ancestral Black people to consume them, make them into teas, because they thought that their greatness would soak into them. They're the ultimate grave robbers. But if 1% of white people dig up a grave, it's not illegal. But let's go to this month's ad and we'll get into the rest of the news.
Style. Style is the answer to everything. A fresh way to approach a dull or dangerous thing. To do a dangerous thing with style is what I call art.
All right. Make sure you share this episode. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell to make sure that you are updated in real time to everything. We covered this when it first happened regarding the nurse, Nicole Linton, and we do have an update. Get comfy. This one's a long one.
Here's an update about Nicole Linton, the woman that caused the fiery crash in Los Angeles about a month ago. Her defense attorneys just filed a motion detailing the nurse's 4-year struggle with bipolar disorder. According to her doctor, she had an apparent lapse of consciousness at the time of the crash. She has no recollection of the events that led to her collision, he wrote. The next thing she recalled was lying on the pavement and seeing that her car was on fire. Her sister, Camille Linton, said in a letter to the court that Nicole's studies to be a nurse caused her first mental health breakdown. The stress was too much for her and it broke her. She ran out of her apartment in May of 2018 during a panic attack, and when police approached her, she jumped on a police car and was arrested for disorderly conduct. She called her family from the police station and was concerned about the well-being of her pet turtle. A few days after that arrest, Linton told her family that she believed she was possessed by her dead grandmother. The next day, at a psychiatric hospital, she required stitches on her forehead after she banged her head into a glass partition while ranting about the police and the Supreme Court. She sang Bob Marley as the medical staff treated her wound. It was there that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and prescribed psychiatric medication. More than a year later, she was involuntarily committed to a psychiatric ward after a neighbor called her family after seeing Linton running around her apartment complex naked. During the pandemic, she stopped taking her psychiatric medication. She began acting strangely, not sleeping, and becoming obsessive about cleaning. She ranted at family members and accused them of stealing from her. In the days and hours leading up to the events of August 4th, Nicole's behavior became increasingly frightening. Linton was in contact with her sister and kept telling her that her coworkers at the West LA Medical Center were acting weird. The day of the crash, Linton drove home from the hospital for lunch and FaceTimed her sister completely naked. She then went back to work and called her sister again at 1:24 p.m., saying that she was leaving work again, just minutes before the crash. She told her sister that she was flying out to meet her in Houston the next day so she could do her niece's hair. She also said that she would be getting married and that her sister should meet her at the altar. Her lawyers argued that mental health issues and Linton's apparently bizarre actions are no reason to keep her locked up and that she should be released for testing at a psychiatric hospital. They said she would wear an ankle monitor or submit to any other conditions imposed by the court. I don't know, guys, but personally, I think she should stay in there.
Mental health is a serious issue. Mental health should, excuse me, always be taken seriously. But let's keep in mind, this woman was a nurse. This woman was around medical professionals every single day. This woman chose to be a part of a science-based career field. And this is why you see so many doctors, so many nurses, so frustrated with a lot of their coworkers, because some people get into the medical profession just because of earnings potential or the status of having RN or, BSN attached to their names. But my biggest qualm, families, stop asking for sympathy after the writing is all over every wall in the house that an intervention needs to be happening, that your family member, your friend, your whoever needs help, and you say nothing until they've hurt themselves or someone else. Mental health does not always result in harm to oneself or to others. I understand that completely. I am not in any way attempting to or insinuating this. But it's time to stop. Stop trying to hide and cover for someone until something like this happens. And it's funny because when the story first broke, there was an interview with someone who presented themselves as a relative or close friend to Linton, who said she was upset regarding a boyfriend and had fled the boyfriend. So what is the actual story? And the last clip we had of her in court, she knew very well what she did because she was breaking down into tears. Now, other times, was she lucid? No idea. But some evaluations need to happen. And it's like, why was the sister so cool, calm, and not saying anything to anybody? And you see that your sister's going through this, what sounds like a manic episode. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm going to fly out to do my niece's hair. And you didn't say anything? And she's able to completely hide this from all of her coworkers, all of her patients. This is also another reason why the police need to be defunded for the second time, and social workers need to be increased. The number of social workers have needed to be increased for eons at this point. But pay teachers and social workers what they deserve, as well as make these desirable as far as pricing points, paying points, positions. Because when her neighbors called on her, this should have been handled differently. And nursing boards, do better. It seems to be the only way that you get properly screened in this country is if you want to be a freaking fireman or a cosmetologist. Ugh. But child, now on to Michael Flynn and his little mini hissy fit.
During our interview, Flynn drew on a familiar tactic, attacking the media.
AP is a horrendous organization, okay? Because of an AP false story on me caused the Dow Jones to drop and either suspended or fired the guy.
What story was that?
The AP never wrote such a story. Flynn got upset when we asked him about his brother, U.S. Army General Charles Flynn, who was involved in the Pentagon's response to the January 6th insurrection.
Did you communicate with Charlie on or about
Charlie who?
Your brother, General Flynn?
Okay, that question.
On or about January.
This is why AP. See, AP won't this. So because of this interview, I will never talk to AP again. So if somebody in a press conference, and because I usually ask, who are you? I got it. I'm so sick of this because it's so fake and it's so targeted and it's all about we're gonna get this guy.
No. It's okay.
That was dumb.
Why don't we
That was dumb. I'll never speak to AP again because of this interview.
But Flynn continues to speak publicly, and his actions show he's building a political movement to influence elections this year and beyond.
And we're not facing Goliath. This enemy is not 10 feet tall. This enemy is weak. And how we defeat them is when we get involved in our communities around this country. God bless you. God bless America. And thank you very much. Peace.
Interviews are supposed to be targeted. They're supposed to be targeted to the person being interviewed. But the verbal gymnastics and the white supremacist, white fragility key points that they keep using, the centering themselves, the victimizing themselves, the oh, sympathize with me, the big bad wolf is after me, they asked me questions about what I actually did. Thought y'all were grown men. Thought y'all were always ready for a civil war. And please stop with the South will rise again. The South didn't rise in the first place. The South destroyed itself and still has not recovered. You didn't rise. Okay? You are the unleavened bread of wars. You're one of the shortest lived countries in history. Sheesh. And if you remember the rape manifesto guy, we got more information on him. Check it out.
Google was censoring the story and his picture, but y'all found it. Finally, a picture of Matt Bellinger. This is a guy that was leading an R-word war against white women, trying to create a race of white babies because he knew our access to abortion is much less than it was before. He's also going to blow up a synagogue. Ex-Marine, media blackout. People were not reporting this. They just didn't want to admit overturning Roe v. Wade breeds people like this who want to victimize women. One of my followers sent his pictures to me, and oh my god, I love you guys so much. Are any of us surprised? Especially with his quotes in the Rolling Stone, if you remember my video. Our wording is an effective tool against our many foes. Who talks like that? Dungeons and Dragons, dude. Tell me why I can so easily see him dressing up like this. We R-word our many foes. Our wording is an effective tool. He and his followers were gonna R-word men, too. Anyone who gets in our way. You see this? We stay ready. Get back! Get back, I say! That was dumb as
Isn't it funny that throughout history, remember, I started telling y'all last month, if you have not heard of or researched the Red Summer, do it. These are the, keep telling you, if you don't learn history, you're destined to repeat it. Because the portion of the Red Summer that occurred in Oklahoma started off with white men putting on blackface to go rape white women, to blame it on black men, in order to start a race war, a race riot. And these women going, yes, yep, that was the black man who did it. Yep, that. Now, you know, when you are up this close to somebody in blackface, you know that it's blackface. But it is what it is. And let's not forget all that good old voter fraud that liberals and leftists were supposed to pull off. Here's some Georgia election footage.
This surveillance video is from a rural county in Georgia 2 months after the 2020 presidential election and just 1 day after Trump's failed coup attempt. And that's Kathy Latham, former chairwoman of the county GOP, letting Trump operatives into the county election office. This happened on the same day as the voting system in that office was illegally breached. The two men you see in the video admitted they gained access to a voting machine in the county, and they said they, quote, scanned all the equipment, imaged all the hard drives, and scanned every single ballot. They also said that Trump lawyer Sidney Powell sent them there to do that. Sidney Powell was going around making wildly unsubstantiated claims about widespread voter fraud after it was clear Trump lost the election. This video sheds more light on the effort to find any evidence of voter fraud that would help challenge Trump's narrow loss in Georgia, often with the assistance of sympathetic local officials. Latham was already under investigation for posing as one of Georgia's fake electors to falsely claim to Congress that Trump had won the state. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation has opened a criminal investigation into the alleged breach of voting data, and the Fulton County District Attorney's Office has also indicated it's looking into the breach as part of its investigation into Trump's efforts to overturn the election.
Let's go along with that. Coming from ABC News, former Trump... No, I don't want to start with that one. Here we go. Sorry, ABC News. Trump aide subpoenaed, FBI seeks interview related to January 6 investigations. The FBI sought to interview a current top advisor to former President Donald Trump, who has also been subpoenaed by a federal grand jury, both in relation to investigations into the events leading up to and on January 6, 2021, sources familiar with the matter told ABC News. William Russell wasn't home when the two FBI agents came to his house Wednesday morning, according to sources familiar with the matter. Russell served the Trump White House as a special assistant to the president and the deputy director of Advance before moving down to Florida to work as an aide to Trump after he left the White House. Now, also coming from ABC News, former Trump advisor Steve Bannon pleads not guilty to defrauding border wall donors. First of all, we already know you were taking that money, but okay. Steve Bannon, a one-time political advisor to former President Donald Trump, pleaded not guilty in Manhattan criminal court Thursday to charges of defrauding donors to the We Build the Wall fundraising campaign for a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. The 6-count indictment charges Bannon and We Build the Wall itself with 2 counts of money laundering, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 to 10 years in prison. There are additional felony counts of conspiracy and scheme to defraud, along with 1 misdemeanor count of conspiracy to defraud. Now, this wouldn't be complete if we couldn't see him in the cuffs. Let's go.
This is what happens the last days of the dying youth. They will never shut me up and kill me first. I have not yet begun to fight.
Sir, it looks like you've been fighting this whole administration and after. This is what happens when you get in bed with a thief. There's no honor among thieves. Now, on Discovery and Discovery Plus, as they are beginning to whitewash everything, there is one docuseries that I advise everyone who dates or engages with men to watch. not just to be informed about this particular person, but to pick up on some warning signs. I'm really tired, and I am in no shape, form, or fashion victim blaming. Do not take it that way. But I am tired of seeing interviews of women and feminine presenting non-binary individuals who have been victimized that always go, oh, he's famous, but, or I saw the signs, but no. Soon as you start getting that tingly feeling in your spine, soon as you see the red flag, run. But please sit back, pay close attention, and if you get the opportunity, please check out the full docuseries. Here we go.
Armie Hammer violently raped me for over 4 hours in Los Angeles, during which he repeatedly slapped my head against a wall, bruising my face.
He was one of Hollywood's favorites until he was accused of rape and having a cannibalistic fetish.
I mean, he said, I'm 100% a cannibal. I'm freaking out.
This is the rise and fall of Armie Hammer. Armand Douglas Hammer was born on August 28, 1986, in a family familiar with scandal. He's the son of businessman Michael Armand Hammer and the great-grandson of oil tycoon Armand Hammer, who's known for money laundering, political cover-ups, and for his ties to Soviet Russia.
On the outside, we were a perfect family, but magnify Succession a million times, and it was my family. If you believe about making deals with the devil, the Hammers are top of the totem pole.
Hammer grew up in California and in the Cayman Islands. He dropped out of high school to pursue acting.
What did your parents say then? And come on, what are they saying now?
Well, needless to say, they were not happy. When I dropped out of high school, they were furious.
In 2010, Hammer starred in his breakthrough role playing twins in David Fincher's The Social Network, about the genesis of Facebook. At 31, Hammer starred in Call Me By Your Name, a coming-of-age romantic drama for which his chemistry with co-star Timothée Chalamet was widely praised.
Tell everybody what the movie is about.
You want to? No, you take this. No, you take it. Nah, I have so much love for Timothy that it's more about how do I keep myself from rambling, honestly.
He starred in several projects, including as Ruth Bader Ginsburg's husband in the movie On the Basis of Sex.
The job's not done. You know, I mean, we still don't have actual gender parity. There's not actual gender equality. So the fight's not over.
In 2020, Hammer's wife of a decade, Elizabeth Chambers, filed for divorce. A few months later, an anonymous Instagram user shared screenshots of messages Hammer allegedly sent women that included violent sexual fantasies and references to cannibalism.
Are you okay to bring up your phone?
Yeah. I haven't really digested this one. I have a fantasy about having someone prove their love and devotion and tying them up in a public place at night and making their body free use and seeing if they will strangers for me.
Several women spoke out about physical and emotional abuse and about non-consensual sex acts they said they endured in relationships with Hammer.
In the beginning, I felt like this was all perfect. This was amazing. But then things changed. He pushes your boundaries a little bit at a time. You get a note that says, I'm going to bite the out of you. And he just acted mad.
Once Courtney came forward, other women started coming forward.
In March 2021, a woman came forward and accused Hammer of raping her.
I met Armie Hammer on Facebook in 2016 when I was 20 years old. On April 24th, 2017, Armie Hammer violently raped me for over 4 hours in Los Angeles, during which he repeatedly slapped my head against a wall, bruising my face. He also committed other acts of violence against me, to which I did not consent.
In March 2021, the Los Angeles Police Department started a sexual assault investigation that has since been wrapped without charges filed. The actor was dropped by his agency and from several projects. Hammer denied the accusations through his lawyer. In 2022, an unverified photo circulated on Twitter of the actor working in the Cayman Islands at a hotel resort selling timeshares.
I said this yesterday to someone. It was in reference to Eliza Fletcher, who was an heiress, who was murdered in Memphis. But it holds true regardless of the gender, male, female, or non-binary. No amount of money can protect you. No amount of money should intimidate you. It is time to break free from this capitalistic indoctrination. Do not allow someone to invade your space or make you feel that you can't speak up because of money. Money does not buy class. Money does not buy dignity. Money does not buy regard for human life. Now, there are some topics that I said that I was going to talk about today, but I did not know this was going to be such a huge news day. Did not see that coming regarding everything that happened. And we have a few more things left over from today to handle. So we'll tackle all of that tomorrow. And tomorrow we will, I will have the bingo cards ready for you guys. So as always, make sure you join me tomorrow. Also, be sure to share this episode. Make sure you click like, subscribe, hit the bell, and be sure to check out any and all links that I place into the description of all videos. And as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Pay attention to this outro video.
This is the first black person to play at Wimbledon. They made her come in and go out through the back, but when she went out, she was holding the trophy. Althea Gibson. There's a very good reason she's in the International Tennis Hall of Fame, International Women's Sports Hall of Fame, International Scholar Athletes Hall. She was born in Silver City, South Carolina on August 29th, 1927. Her father was a sharecropper. But she grew up in Harlem where she got in a lot of fights, so she started playing sports. She learned to play tennis on courts that were often dark, because she had to wait till after they were closed because she wasn't allowed on them. But she won the ATA National Championship when she was 15 years old and then came back and did it again next year. And then she actually won it 10 years in a row. Then she becomes the first black person to win a Grand Slam. That's when you win all the competitions. Then she wins Wimbledon and the US Open 2 years in a row, and then retires and writes an autobiography and puts out a jazz album. Then starts golfing, becomes the first black woman to go pro, and wins the LPGA Tour in 1964. She passed away in 2003 from health complications, but she will be remembered, especially by all the athletes walking in front doors now.